Okay, hey everybody, my name is Patrick Burke and I'm proud to be principal here at South Burlington High School, and I have a few brief welcoming remarks before I introduce Senator Sanders. So in the 10 years that I've been principal here at South Burlington High School, Senator Sanders has called, asked him to visit the school on multiple occasions, and it's always a great honor when the senator comes to the school. But and as everybody knows, based on his electoral success, Senator Sanders is a very popular politician in Vermont, and there are a lot of people that really love him. And one of those people is the school secretary here at the high school. And then there are a few Vermonters who, don't love him. And one of those few Vermonters is the husband of the school secretary here at the high school. So they kind of have this cancel out each other's vote relationship. But one time, Senator Sanders came to visit, and she said, I really would like to have a picture with the senator, so after he's finished with the class, can he come down to the office? So I said, sure. So Senator came down, and always obliging. So we took a photo of the secretary and Senator Sanders, and she was thrilled, and we printed it out, and somehow that photo replaced their wedding photo on the mantle at their house for a short period of time. So, but seriously, the senator's visits, the first time the senator visited here when I was in high school, I got a call from his office in September of 2001. And when I asked for the purpose of the visit, I'm thinking, U.S. senator's coming to the school. It's a speech. He's going to give a speech. This is an important time in our country's history. And the staffer on the other end of the phone said, actually, Bernie's heading back to D.C. You're close to the airport, and he wants to see how the students are doing. And that's exactly what happened. The senator spoke briefly to a group of juniors and seniors, and then he opened the floor and the students took over. Senator Sanders managed the conversation with the skill of my best teachers. He challenged students who agreed with him, and he recognized those who did not. He took pains to be balanced, but most of all, he listened. I firmly believe that Senator Sanders would have been a great teacher, and I'm not talking about one of those cushy teaching jobs like lecturer at Harvard or UVM professor. I mean a real hard job like being a high school teacher. So now when Bernie's office calls asking if he can visit, I announce to students and staff that the senator will be our guest teacher for the day. No press releases, no fanfare, no media, just a U.S. senator checking to see how the students are doing. So on behalf of my fellow advocates for young people, I thank the senator for his sincere desire to listen to the voices of Vermont youth. The State of the Union contest is but one example of the senator's desire to challenge, to reach out to, and to listen to our nation's youth. So congratulations to all of the students for your award-winning State of the Union essays, and it is an honor to introduce Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont.
Okay, this is what, first of all, let me thank all of you guys for participating in the essay contest. And thank you very much for the very high quality of the essays that you wrote. As you know, our country has a lot of problems, and sometimes people worry about the future. But I think when people see the work that you and many other young people around the state are doing, we feel a little bit better about the future. I want to say a few words, and then what I would like to do is give each of you an opportunity to say a few words, and then we're going to open it up for general discussion. Okay? You can focus on the essay you wrote or anything else that you would like to talk about. And the first point that I want to make is that the reason we do this essay contest is that I have a lot of concern that a lot of young people your age do not have a sense of what democracy is about. And democracy is a very radical idea. It's a pretty new idea in human civilization. And what it suggests is that everybody, all people, not just kings and queens and big landowners, but all people have a right to shape the future of the world in which they live. Pretty radical idea. And yet a lot of people in our own country sit around, they say, well, I'm not going to vote. I don't understand the issues. I don't really care. I don't like anybody. They don't know what's going on. They don't study what's going on. They don't express their point of view. They don't try to change the system. So the future is yours. And it is important that you know what's going on, what you would like, where you would like to see the country go, the world go, and figure out how you can have an impact on that world, how you can be an active participant in the democratic process, not just somebody sitting back and allowing other people to make the decision. So that's why we do things like this. A second point is sometimes publicly it is hard to get up and express your point of view. We all get a little bit nervous. But I think it's important that you deal with that, and the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more you participate in the political process, the easier it becomes. So I'm going to ask you all to say a few words today, and I hope as you go forward, as you get older, you are not afraid to stand up, overcome your fears, and participate and fight for what you believe in. This country today faces probably more serious problems, and all of you in one way or another have written about those problems than we have faced since the Great Depression of the 1930s. All right, that's the reality. And you have all touched on these things. Economically, what's the issue out there? The issue out there is when you leave school, are there going to be decent paying jobs for you? Are there going to be good jobs out there? Right now, unemployment is very, very high. Issue of environment and climate change. I'm on the environmental committee in the Senate. And the leading scientists of the world come before us and they say, wow, if we don't get our act together and start cutting back on greenhouse gas emissions, it is possible that within your lifetimes, and hopefully you're all going to live long and happy lives, that within your lifetimes, the temperature of the planet Earth could go up by 7 or 8 degrees Fahrenheit. What will that mean in terms of extreme weather disturbances like Irene or Sandy, or flooding or drought? What will it mean? Well, it will mean a lot. How do we deal with that issue? Right now, as a nation, we spend almost as much money as the rest of the world on the military, on defense. Meanwhile, we have the highest rate of childhood poverty in the industrialized world. How do we create a more peaceful world so that people aren't killing each other and we're trying to address issues of world poverty? For many of you and your classmates, going to college is going to be a very expensive proposition. Kids in Vermont are graduating on average, $25,000 in debt, some more. If you want to go to medical school or law school, got guys working for me who went to law school, they're $100,000, $150,000 in debt. Is that a good situation? How do we deal with that? We have 46 million people in America today who have no health care. Now, we hope that's going to change as a result of something we passed a couple of years ago. A lot of people can't get to a doctor when they should. What do we do about that? So, and those are just some of the issues that come across my desk, and you've written in one way or another on all of these issues. So what I would like to do this morning is for you guys to take a minute. The other thing that I want to tell you is when I was in the House, before I was in the Senate, there are 435 members of the House. Vermont has 1 congressman. And because of so many people, people have to be very, very brief when they speak. If they go to the floor of the House, sometimes you speak for 15 seconds on a debate. 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. So you got to learn sometimes to say a lot in a short period of time. So I'm going to challenge you today. We'll give you all about a minute to talk about your sense of the State of the Union, if you like. Where are we as a nation? What are some of the good things that have happened? I've talked about some of the negatives, some very good things that have happened.
Well, I wrote my essay on corruption in Congress, specifically corporate lobbying, because corporations have so much money, they have their lobbying firms, and they're able to like convince congressmen to, get legislation passed that favors their corporation, and that might not favor the general population, like such as ExxonMobil does a lot of that with like gas drilling and such as, and that's not very good for our environment, but it gets passed because they have the money to like lobby Congress. And I didn't write about it in my essay, but also I think that big issues are unemployment. Our economy is as bad as it's been since the Great Depression, and yeah.
Good, excellent.
In my essay, I wrote about taxes and how they affect the lower and middle classes, and I wrote about my experiences of being part of the lower classes and middle classes and how it affects people, and the good things and the bad things about taxes and how I feel about them. And I also agree with her about the economy and how bad that was, and I wrote a little bit about that too.
I explored the relation between income inequality and the different percentage of taxes based on what your income is, whether it's capital gains from trading stocks and bonds or just a general income. And I really explored that and its impact about families and the level of opportunity a child has based on the wealth their family owns.
I wrote about that. I agree we have made significant progress in our nation in regards to healthcare and climate change and education, but we still have significant steps to be made. And I think one of the main things that's important in today's world is that reform isn't always coming from the top down in the form of bills and laws, but it's also coming from people, like from the bottom up, on a smaller scale, like in communities. Like instead of big businesses dominating our economy, if people in communities could buy locally, that would benefit people. And if better community connections could be forged among people, it would, in a time of crisis like at Sandy Hook or after all these natural disasters we've been having, it wouldn't just be people coming together because there's a crisis, but there would already be a sense of community.
Yeah, I wrote my essay about student loan and how they get debt when they graduate college. Yeah, for me, it's really hard because my brother graduated high school last year and he couldn't get in college because he decided to take a loan. Now he is dead. So I think, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I just briefly touched on the education system and where the United States stands on those ladders of like in developed countries, and that was really it. I think I also talked about the economy as well, and how far we've come, and I guess how similar it is to the Great Depression in the 1930s.
I didn't write about this, but recently I've been applying for college, and I think I'm personally just astounded at the fact that students today are having to put themselves in so much debt when their main goal is just to try to add to society and just to try to benefit the general welfare of the country and sometimes even globally. And I think that's just something that personally disturbs me, applying for college and just feeling like I have to enter so much debt to do good.
Yeah, in my essay, I focused on the current economy and the concerns of young people coming out of college because I also touched upon the fact that so many jobs are being outsourced of the United States that we really need to bring a lot more jobs back home so that people leaving college can have somewhere to go.
I talked about gun control and how there are a lot of arguments about it, and I talked about my opinion that semi-automatic weapons are really not needed, and how, like I said, like they're not needed, and I think that's a big issue. I also talked about Congress and how right now it's seemingly like dysfunctional and not a lot is getting done, and I think that's a source of a lot of frustration for people, and it's why they don't want to get educated about their government, and they don't want to vote because they just are so frustrated, and I think that's a big issue. And then I also agree with what's already been said about education, how our nation needs to reform their education because we need to be able to compete globally with the new workforce, which I think we need to work on math and science.
The thesis of my essay was also about Congress and its dysfunctionality. And as I was writing it and thinking about it later, I thought about how democracy in itself is about disagreeing, and it's about two or three or a million different sides of an issue, and how that's a good thing, and that's important that we look at those different sides, but also to find some common ground. So I think that's an interesting balance that we have yet to find, and it won't be a black and white solution.
In my essay, I wrote about voter rights and how it's a basic human right in democracy to have the chance to cast your ballot and contribute to our society and our outcome with voting, and how criminal it is for these states to be creating laws and boundaries, or not boundaries, boulders and all those hindrances to get around and be able to just cast your ballot.
For my essay, I wrote about energy and how we should invest in like clean, sustainable energy, and also how we should depend less on foreign nations for oil. Like we should invest in wind and solar. I also wrote about how we should get Congress to get tax incentives for sustainable energy. And I talked about how other countries, they have a lot, they can control our oil a lot, so we should prevent, yeah, that's pretty much what I got.
In my essay, I wrote a lot about the importance of the upcoming generations and the future and education, and how if you see your parents and your brother and sister going to college and not being able to find jobs when they come out of college, then what is going to make students want to go to college or see the importance of it. And that was a very big part of my essay, is that the people applying to college now will one day run our country, and they need to be able to go to good schools so that our country can be in good hands.
I wrote about uniting globally and how if we were all working towards the same goals, then we'd get more done quicker, such as making sure everyone has the same, everyone's meeting their basic human needs, like nobody's starving and climate change, etc.
I agree with Sydney, and I also wrote about uniting globally and communicating globally, because I think that there are a lot of really complicated issues that would entail really complicated solutions. And in order to find those solutions, I think we all really need to come together, because one person isn't going to be able to find the solution to climate change. And not even one country is going to be able to find the solution to climate change, because it's a global problem, and there are so many problems that are global because we all live on the same planet. And we need to realize that we all live on the same planet and work as a planet.
I touched heavily on unemployment rate and jobs that need to be created in America in order to lower the unemployment rate. And then I also briefly touched on Israel and our aid process and what we give to them and the relationship they hold with the Palestinians and what we should do in order to help that.
I think that all these issues are really, really important, such as the economy and taxes and all that stuff. But I think that the fundamental principle of democracy is universal participation. And just last week we had town meeting day, and there was an average of about 10 to 20% of voter turnout. That needs to be addressed. That's not a democracy. That's a small portion of the country that's deciding these things. We have all these problems, but the voter turnout is so low, we need to address that. And then we can work further to right our problems.
Let me start off. What I'd like to do now is just pick up on some of the issues that you raised, maybe a few you didn't, and just open it up for brief discussions. So we'll move around a bit. I think there was a recurring theme out there about the concern about the high cost of college. Unemployment is pretty high for young people, so you're getting people who are graduating who are not able to make a whole lot of money repaying that debt. What would you like to see happen? What should the United States Congress or the President do to address what is clearly a very serious problem?
I think it's a hard balance to try and figure out, because I know that there's an issue of whether colleges, like private versus public colleges, and it is sort of their right to decide how much they want college to be. But at the same time, I think it's really important that when you graduate, like, you're going to spend so much money getting a really good education and then have nothing to do with that education.
It's going to be really hard to come to a solution because just because of the way our economy is, and I think capitalism is good, but it's going to be definitely hard to find a solution to high cost of college education in a capitalist society.
People who work full-time and make minimum wage aren't even making enough to live, not with livable wage. And if they can't afford to get past that and go to college and have a higher paying job, there's no future, there's no progression in that.
Further discussion? what is the government's interest in higher education? Yes.
In my mind, education is a human right because that's how we're going to get voters out, not only to the polls, but actually learning about what we're voting for.
So this is a big, big issue, and it touches on another issue then that one of you raised, I think maybe you, and that is the concern that internationally, especially in areas like math and science, we are falling further behind other countries.
I think we need to work to get the science and math teachers to try to work harder with us because I know that in my school we are letting go one of the best math teachers who has ever come to our school, and it's really hard because that's a financial issue, but it is really affecting how the education is going to be in the future.
Okay.
I think we also have a cultural problem where I think maybe in other countries being really good at math or science is more celebrated than here, and the United States sort of celebrates success, like you're famous or you won an Oscar or you're on TV or you're a singer, and while that is an accomplishment, there's there's not broadcasting of someone winning a Nobel Peace Prize for science or math or actually making significant progress.
I want you to give me an honest assessment of this. There has been a fear that if somebody takes learning seriously, likes to read, that they're thought of as a nerd, a bit of a jerk, and not cool. And I want you to, is that an issue in your schools?
I think that time has passed.
You think that time has passed?
I agree.
All right, good, let's see, I'm glad to hear that. Further, other discussion. Is there pressure, in other words, is there negative pressure on people who say, you know what, I really want to study, I'm interested? Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure.
Give us your name and school.
Oh, I'm sorry. Taryn Drew, CVU. And I can't speak for everyone else's schools, but I feel like in CVU, I actually feel very positive pressure to actually do better with my the rest of my peers. I mean, I actually feel like it's really valued to do much better in school, which I think is a good thing coming from at least the school I am from. And I've never ever experienced a time where I've said, oh, I love to read or I love to write, and someone said, oh, that's very geeky of you or anything. I mean, I've always felt very positive about it.
Okay. Yep, name?
I'm Allie from CVU. I really agree with that. I definitely think CVU has an environment that encourages doing well. But what I was going to say about education, I agree with what Callie said about culture, but I just want to add that I think our culture, when you're applying to college, they say it's really good to do good in school, but we also want to see what else you do, like extracurriculars. And I think that our country they like education, but they also want to see all the other things you do, whereas in other countries, I think school is the #1 thing, and they want to see how good your grades are, and that's it. And I think we have less of a focus on that.
Okay. What we did is we took your essays and we put them in the Congressional Record. You know what the Congressional Record is? The Congressional Record is the official document of the United States Congress going back to the very beginning of our country. So all of the debates that take place in the House and the Senate go into the Congressional Record, which is published every single day, both on paper and online, and it is there for the future of America. So we've taken all of your essays and we've put them into the Congressional Record, and I am now going to give you a copy of what appears in the Congressional Record. But if you go online, you will find them right there. So let's begin with Caroline Braun from CVU. Callie, you want to come on up? Yeah, Callie won first place on the award. And Callie, look at Phil here and we'll grab this. Okay, good. Thanks, Callie.
There is no simple cure for the abundant issues plaguing our nation. Not only are we recovering from a recession, but we are also confronting challenges related to climate change, healthcare, and education. While our efforts to address these issues are noble, our failure to solve them reflects a more concerning societal problem. On December 14, 2012, 20 children and 6 faculty members were fatally shot in Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newton, Connecticut. Not only did this devastating tragedy leave close friends, family, and the local community in shock, but also the nation. Though it is remarkable that our country embraced the friends and family of those killed, we only seem to value such a strong sense of community after a crisis. The dramatic increase in violence in the past decade raises new questions about our current societal values and priorities. Have we forgotten what's truly important in this new age? While we enjoy the many luxuries that accompany technology in contemporary life, has the lure of modern convenience eclipsed our fundamental human need to take care of and support each other, our families, and our communities? Perhaps it is time we recalibrate who we are and who we want to be as a country, so that the fundamental values on which our nation was founded can once again flourish. How can one pursue happiness without access to basic health care, food, or the ability to spend time with the ones we love? Certainly when our forefathers declared our right to bear arms, their intent was not for corporations and special interest groups to profit from its citizens being armed with assault weapons intended for war. Instead of unbridled greed and big business dominating our economy, it is imperative that we support small businesses so they can thrive once again. Environmentally, we have yet to replace our dependence on oil with renewable energy resources and reduce our effects on climate change. And while we all agree that educating our children is a requisite investment in our future, teachers continue to earn, on average, 12% less than other workers with similar education and work experience. As a world leader and role model for democracy and peace, we need initiatives that not only connect people and communities, but also ones that will act as catalysts for change. Increasing awareness of issues related to social justice will spark larger movements for societal change, whether it be reducing community violence, practicing business ethics, implementing renewable energy resources, advocating for mental health care, or investing in our teachers in schools. Instead of businesses and special interest groups being the sole influence on policies and the direction of our country, now is the time, once again, for all citizens to be heard, cared for, and respected. Although as a nation we have and continue to make advances that were inconceivable just a century ago, our penchant for the new shouldn't trump our commitment to older values and fundamental human rights.